What's happening? It's time for more Destiny 2 news. We've got a bunch of updates from Bungie today. They outline some fixes and changes that we'll get in the next Destiny 2 update, which will be arriving on the 16th of December alongside the Dawning. So it includes activity fixes, but also some changes coming up for the new exotic mission for the Praxic Blade, which should make it easier to actually complete. So we'll round up those, potential changes coming to invasions in the future. Plus, Bungie speak about some of the things they've learned in Year of Prophecy so far. They acknowledge big issues with the game following Edge of Fate, and some of what they have planned next, including that we will see the return of Dredgen Bael in the future. Additionally, we get our first snippets of info about the Shadow and Order update that's coming in March, where we'll discover a hidden Hive weapon foundry, so that'll be interesting. And we have a bunch of other updates to discuss, so if you guys enjoy the video, feel free to say something Hivey in the comment section for the algorithm, especially since they'll be our next target, I guess. Otherwise, let's get into it. Starting out for today, a few updates from Bungie. Players have been discussing the amount of 1v1 invasions inside of the Renegades content, so of course when you invade, you can be matched against the team who are actually in the Lawless Frontier, or I guess if a game isn't available, it will match you against another invader that also doesn't have a game available for them. And yes, that tends to happen a lot of the time, so DMG said the team is looking into it, and until then, be on your toes. Hopefully we'll get a fix for it soon. It's far more fun to invade an actual team, in my experience. Otherwise, some folks have complained about the Ash and Iron Master Conquest getting stuck after beating the boss. DMG said they are also looking into that problem. Other things Bungie have said: after resolving a scoring issue with update 9501, the Derealized Master Conquest has now been re-enabled, so if you've been waiting to get that one done, it should be available. Otherwise, they're still targeting a fix for Conductor's Keep, which will go live on December 16th in update 9503. At the same time, we will get the launch of the Dawning next Tuesday, so be on the lookout for that. Otherwise, we'll additionally get changes for the Fire and Ice exotic missions, so Bungie say this is based on community feedback. Firstly, they'll reduce the time required to interact with the pyramid activators in the boss arena to 1 second. That's a good change because when you're standing up there being beamed by the boss, it can be pretty annoying, so basically you'll just be able to run past it to activate it now. Otherwise, they're changing the platforms in the boss arena to be solid on legendary difficulty, and they've adjusted their positioning to offer more protection on both difficulties. Plus, they fixed an issue where players were blocked from earning the Upper Hand or Hyperblade catalysts for Praxic Blade after acquiring one of the two, and again, these changes will drop on December 16th, so it isn't really a massive difficulty change, but it certainly addresses some of the annoying things in the Fire and Ice mission, so can't really complain on that front. Something else here which is interesting, but on the season in-game, there is actually a text description for the Shadow and Order update, which is the major update in March, so we can see, race the Dredgen and their outlaw mercenaries to a weapon of shadowy legend, storm a Hive weapons foundry and prevent the Dredgen from expanding their corrupted arsenal. So that's going to be the theme of the next major update. I certainly hope it's a bit better than what we had with Ash and Iron. It already sounds like there may be more of a narrative component, potentially. We'll see. It actually seems like it could relate to some of the lore teasers we had about Renegades before it dropped, so these were from the Vanguard datapads in Edge of Fate. I know the Martian Cabal isn't a sanctioned target, but mark my words, it's only a matter of time. Nobody stockpiles this much gear without hedging against Guardian interference, and they'll want paracausal weapons sooner or later. By the time we see them in the field, it'll be too late. That's from the Treacherous Contracts lorebook. Obviously, some of it pertains to Renegades itself, but with reference to paracausal weapons and obviously the potential Weapon of Sorrow link there, it looks like Shadow and Order, in general, will kind of theme more around the Dredgens and the Weapons of Sorrow, and that Hive influence a bit more. So I'm certainly curious to learn more about that. Again, I just hope it is a bit more put together than Ash and Iron was. So share your thoughts on it below. Onto a few bits of other news here though. Firstly, yes, players are discussing whether the Eclipse energy referenced in Renegades could hint at a red subclass in the future. That's the energy that powers Nightfall Station, and we saw a bunch of that at the end of the Renegades campaign especially. So the speculation Bungie could be hinting at another Darkness subclass, the red subclass that everyone's been discussing for quite some time. Of course, the last thing that Bungie officially said on the subject was that it is not something they have in development, so you can really take that or leave it. Give me your impressions of it down below. Otherwise, a couple of interview segments here which are interesting. In relation to Renegades, firstly, this is from Ryan Gilliam. At Rogue site, they were able to interview Bungie regarding Renegades, and one of the bits that was interesting in relation to this particular story, in reference to Dredge and Bael, they say they took a Kylo Ren influence and added some pizzazz from Destiny on top of it, and we were able to make something that feels new and fresh for the IP. But importantly, they've said it's a character they want to take outside of Renegades as well, and that we're going to see Dredge and Bael again. So more Dredge and Bael in the future, pretty much confirmed by Bungie there. On the subject of expansion collaborations though, like the Star Wars Renegades things, Paul Tassi indicated that Bungie had said directly they don't have more collaborations like this planned at the moment, so over the next year when we get to the expansions coming up for 2026 and beyond, we shouldn't necessarily expect to see a big joint project like this again. But going back to the Rogue interview, Ryan Gilliam commented on the fact that Bungie have changed a lot heading into the Fate Saga, and he directly asks about the amount of bugs that were present, especially early on after Edge of Fate had dropped, and Bungie said a big part of their influence for this year was people wanting change, asking for new things to do, new ways to explore, new loot, and different ways of playing the game in general. But the devs said change is also messy, and the thing that we will own and acknowledge is there were probably parts of the game where we went too far and we changed too much too quickly, and with that comes attacks, which is how much we then need to react to those things that aren't working for how much we've changed. So Bungie kind of openly acknowledged that the level of changes, the amount of stuff they pushed out relatively quickly in Edge of Fate, was a big contributor to why there have been so many bugs in the game. Tyson Green also spoke in an IGN interview about how it felt coming out of the final shape into this new saga, where he'd said the final shape brought things to a crescendo, and that people were pleased and satisfied with what they'd played, but then there was the big downward spike in population, which happened because we ended the saga. So you get what you pay for, right? He did add though that this wasn't the plan from a business perspective, and we still want to keep making Destiny, having many stories to tell in this universe, and there are lots of things we want to do to keep building the game, but unfortunately it was not gracefully managed and we had to try something. Which included leaning into more systems of pursuit, getting new tiers of gear, armor sets, and power progression. Things that can allow a core audience of players to really put the game through its paces, but it essentially acknowledges it didn't work. I think we've been taught a bunch of hard lessons about what our players want, and there are really two kinds of live games, those that listen to players and respond, and those that don't. We don't want to be a dead live game, we want to keep building Destiny, so we're listening to our players, and what they're telling us is that they don't want to chase a simple number that goes up, they want real rewards. And at the very least, it's a massive recognition of the core kind of problem with the power grind specifically, but also the level of change and Bungie's general approach to content this year. We can safely say they absolutely understand that this did not work out the way that they wanted it to, or indeed how the players really wanted it to overall, right? And to a degree, we've seen some of those things addressed in Renegades, whether it was the component of scrapping the power grind or significantly speeding it up, where it still exists for those kind of catching up, but also focusing far more in the destination in relation to Renegades content and moving away from the portal, which really does feel a lot better in terms of theme and general identity for the game. I also like in the Lawless Frontier that we're not constantly having to set modifiers for the activities and all that kind of stuff, as that gets kind of jarring as well, so I'm glad that Bungie have recognised these components, and we'll see what kind of system reworks they might be able to actually do to move us away from the Year of Prophecy style of doing things, but that's probably a few months out yet, even as a starting point. Although Bungie have said next year they plan to deliver this roadmap and give us a better sense of where we go moving forward. So give us your thoughts down below, but for today, that is what we have to speak about. I will keep you up to date as always with more Destiny content, so keep it locked and loaded here. But if you found the video interesting, a rating would really help us out too. Otherwise though, thank you for tuning in, and I hope you guys have an awesome day.